Hey guys, welcome back to the Jellyverse channel. I'm super happy that you're here. Today I'm with our CTO from Jelly Labs, Yaman, and we're going to talk about some real deep insights of Jellyverse. So in this format, which is like a tech talk, we really want to go into the details. We want to explain to you how different things works, how the governance system works, and really explain, especially in this episode, why Jellyverse is an ecosystem. So I think we're gonna have a lot of time here to discuss a lot of things. It's gonna be very interesting. So let's get right into it. Jovan, thanks for being here. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's get right into it. One of our first topics we want to talk about is generally giving an overview of Jellyverse. So I think, Yaman, Jellyverse for a lot of people is very abstract. Like we always talk about so many things at the same time, and it's like the DAX and the staking and all of that. So let me maybe start here with a quick overview, and we're gonna look at the dashboard and then maybe explain it super short in here. So we have the first protocol, which is our DEX. It's a decentralized exchange where people can exchange different assets. We explained that in also one of our shorter videos. If you want to have a deeper dive into the DEX itself, maybe check this video out. We have the staking protocol, which allows you to stake your Jolly and participate in this whole reward distribution. I think this is one of the things we're really going to cover today and go into the details. We have the burn event. And besides all of that, we have a cool overview page here, which brings all together. And we have the whole governance system and the reward distribution. So those are like the 5 main smart contracts inside of this whole universe. And yeah, maybe, Jovan, you can summarize in a couple words from your perspective what really makes Jellyverse this ecosystem and why it's not just a single protocol and how that plays into all of that.
Yeah, sure. So when we started talking about developing something like this, it kind of grew from just a single simple fork of the DEX to this entire ecosystem. And when we say ecosystem, it gets a bit confusing. Like, what does that mean? It actually means that it's a set of protocols, set of financial products that are all tied together by a single reward system, governance system, and staking. So what we currently have there is the DEX as kind of like the main protocol in that system. In the future, hopefully, we will have more and more protocols, and it will all be tied together by staking and governance. So yeah, that is it in short. We have the Jelly there as the main token that is used for utility, for governance, and it ties the whole product together.
Before we maybe jump into the details of this tying together, I think that's really an interesting component and something we did not really talk about in the past because it's also a bit abstract, technical, and we're going to do this today. What are the challenges in doing this? Maybe you, especially with your technical background, can explain a bit better on that. Maybe you can give the people a feeling of the comparison between simply forking a protocol and yeah, deploying that or putting it into this bigger idea of an ecosystem.
Yeah, so it's really dependent on the protocol. I think it's when we talked about tying it all together, it's very important how you tie everything together. And if you take a singular protocol that is not meant to be a part of the wider system, and you make some changes to it to adapt it to be a part of that system, depending on how big those changes are, it can be more or less challenging. Anyway, since our priority is security and being as kind of firm as possible, no bugs, as secure as possible, it's very important for us to test everything, to have like a real certainty that any change that we made, no matter how small it is, doesn't negatively affect security or doesn't have any negative impact on the code stability. In the case of the DEX, for instance, the changes are not that big. The main adaptation that we had is instead of having the balancer token, to have the jelly token. But also, I think the key thing is there to really understand how balancer smart contracts work. Which ones do we want to use and which ones we don't need, because a lot of them are very specific and maybe not something that makes sense in our ecosystem. And primarily focusing on the architecture of the entire thing and how everything fits together. So it's not even about the specific changes made to the smart contracts, but looking at the bigger picture and how everything ties together.
I think it was a great summary. So maybe we can be a bit more precise now and go a bit into the details. So I'm going to bring the screen back here. And interesting fact, today, on the day where we record this, we launched our new website. So if you haven't checked that out, really, really check it out. I think it turned out really, really great. And seeing the animations here of Jelly looks very, very nice. But that on the side, maybe let's talk a bit more in detail about governance. We have here the documentation, which is also now live. So if you want to read a bit more about it, you can go on the landing page here and open it through the docs. And maybe let's jump a bit to this, give it a short overview how the governance system works, and then maybe explain how this upgradability works. So we talked about this as well in the past, and you slightly touched on it, Johan, that we want to build an ecosystem that is open for other people to build on. And you mentioned also that we want to have multiple protocols in future, but we are obviously not able to develop so much in such a short time, right? So we really aim to build an ecosystem which invites other people to build on top of. So maybe we cover governance first, and then we jump into it and explain how the Jelly stake ties that together with the transaction fee.
Yeah, sure. So, well, governance is done. So one of our main priorities was to have a really decentralized system. So in order to achieve that, we had to have a governance system that is fully decentralized and doesn't have any admin rights, any manual work needed. Nobody has a permission to press the button explicitly or anything like that. So the governance system that we are currently developing, and in that system, anybody can make a proposal. Anybody can vote on a proposal if the quorum is met, and if the proposal goes through, then more or less automatically, we'll get into what that means. That proposal is executed. Um, so maybe to define what a proposal is. So in order to have the stability that we want to have, and the predictability for all the participants in the system, we will have a sort of preset set of parameters that can be changed through governance. So most of the smart contracts will be immutable. Some parameters in those smart contracts will be mutable and changeable through governance. Yeah, we're still missing a full list of that, but we're still missing a full list in one place. We do know what configurable parameters there will be. Anyway, a governance proposal will in fact be changing of those parameters. So a set of transactions that can change one or multiple parameters, or rather trigger one or multiple functions in a smart contract. So that in short is what a government proposal is. It doesn't mean it's no code writing, it's not forking, it's not anything more or less abstract than this. It's just changing certain parameters in the system.
That's very, sorry to interrupt you. That's very interesting. Just to make it a bit more easier to understand, maybe for some listeners, you're saying that we have a set of parameters that we can change, and those parameters you're talking about, just to explain a bit, is parameters inside the smart contracts. This means that you cannot technically change everything inside of Jellyverse, but what you can change are certain parameters that we initially on designing everything, decided to be set for change.
Exactly. Yes. So it's all of it is predetermined. So we are now, when developing those smart contracts, determining what parameters can and cannot be changed.
This is also very interesting because it outlays one of the challenges, like with all of this, right? To think about all those changing parameters and make sure which has to be changeable in future. And that's something which, in regard to creating this ecosystem where other people can build on top of, requires flexibility and maybe is a bit more challenging than compared to other projects. But yeah,
Yeah,
please
for
go on.
sure. Yeah, for sure it is challenging, and it's also kind of very important to define responsibilities at an earliest time possible. So, for instance, the governance system itself doesn't really know which parameters are changeable. The governance system just has a way of determining whether a proposal goes through or not, and then mechanisms to trigger the transactions that the proposal is composed of. But those transactions, whether they're executable or not, the governance system doesn't know. So it's up to the people who are writing a proposal to make sure that the proposal itself has valid transactions in it. And then it's up to the people writing specific smart contracts to make sure that the governance contract has access rights to change those parameters. It's all about architecture and determining the responsibilities of each part of the system.
Great. So if we go a bit into the details, we have two roles here, which is proposer and executor. So as by design right now, and this is, it's maybe not too important to name this, but it's a bit easier to understand. So there's two roles an address can take into play. It can be a proposer, so it can schedule and cancel operations, which means basically it can set up a proposal. And we have an executor who's able to really execute the operation once the time lock has expired. We're going to talk about this a bit more. In practice, proposers and executors can be or will be everyone. So
Exactly.
this is one of the design decisions we did, because we really want everyone to be able to create a proposal and to execute a proposal. And maybe you can explain a bit why the executor role is here so important for decentralization and why this makes it also, a bit like challenging and risky to really put this role to everyone.
Yeah, I don't think it's risky in a security sense. I think it's really something that we need to have for decentralization. And if the entire system is written well and securely, then it's not an issue. But it was very tough for us to kind of say, okay, everybody can make changes. We don't have any admin rights. We're not going to be able to do the changes ourselves. So, meaning if any mistake is made, we are kind of unable to directly change that, and we have to go through the governance system completely. But also, we are pretty sure that no mistakes, or at least no big mistakes like that, will be made, because we are really working hard to make everything as secure and as stable as possible. And also, our priority again is decentralization. So we really want to have the faith of the people that all of this is a community thing, right? And that at no point in time we can come in and make any changes that the community disagrees with. In practical terms, both proposers and executors being anybody is not that big of an issue, since every proposal to be executed needs to be voted upon, and also for the voting to pass, we need to have a quorum. So that means that anybody can make a proposal, but if that proposal is something that is people are not interested in, or they just don't market it and goes under the radar, and doesn't pass the quorum, then it's not gonna get executed. Also, if the proposal does pass and people vote for it, people like it, anybody can click the button and execute it. So it's irrelevant whether that's us or anybody else. So yeah, that's kind of the process that we go through.
Absolutely. So here's one more time, maybe the graph to just follow along. We have the proposal, which is then set up. There's going to be a time delay. And then once this time delay has passed, the proposal is active, so it can be voted on. This time delay will be probably depending on the proposal. That's it. I think a detail we're still figuring out. But this delay is probably not as important. Then we have the voting itself. So either the proposal is defeated or it really gets passed, so it's successful. And then we have the queue, so it's getting called. We have another time delay, so people have time to prepare for that. And then really in the end, we can have the execution part. So really the point where the proposal gets really into reality. And this is, I think, the most critical one for a governance system, which you may also want to analyze when you maybe are invested into other projects and they pretend to be decentralized, to really have a look that they have this execution layer as well decentralized. And this is not depending on the team in the end of the day to really push it through.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but it doesn't require any code writing, right? It's not something that is it's technical in nature, but it's not as technical as much as you need, like understanding of the entire system, and you just you just form a proposal like that. So it's very different from what a lot of people in the DeFi chain community are familiar with. So on DeFi chain, you have your voting and then proposal passes, but then somebody actually needs to write that code if some coding is necessary, and then you need to fork that. Everybody needs to upgrade to the new version of the node and so on. And here everything is kind of a bit smoother and it runs a bit differently.
Okay, I think this is a great overview. We have the proposals states here, which I think are pretty self-explanatory. So if someone wants to check that out, maybe just open the doc and go through this. Let me see if I can slowly scroll out of here. So maybe before we close the governance topic, we could talk about where do we need governance. So one of the big points is going to be the reward distribution, which we can also talk about right in this tech talk. But besides the reward distribution, we will have, as you said, some parameters that may be changed. Maybe you can give some examples here.
So well, first and foremost, any parameters that are pool specific. So what we want to have is fees in the pool to be changeable, because it is really something that we want the community to have control over. Also, to shutting down a pool in a case of anything bad happening with the pool, any exploit or something like that. The incentives that go inside of the pool, although that's kind of a part of the reward distribution that we talked about. Certain parameters for voting for the governance system. So there's really a wide spectrum of things that we want to have configurable. There's also some things that we really don't want to have configurable. For instance, any sort of staking parameters, any sort of staking math, we want to have fixed, because that's something that requires commitment from people. We'll get into staking later on, but it requires people to freeze their jelly for a certain period of time, and we don't want to change the effect that you get when freezing after you actually made the decision to freeze and cannot reverse your decision. But yeah, it's very protocol dependent.
Okay, I think that was a good overview. I think maybe it makes sense to quickly talk about staking, and because it fits very good to what we just explained, and to explain better how people can build on top of Jellyverse and what the specialty here is for Jellyverse. I think the protocols and all the ideas are great themselves, but what really makes Jellyverse unique is actually this tightening together, like crafting this ecosystem. So maybe let's jump to this one and give a short overview of, let me share the screen again.
Yeah. So yeah, staking. I would say we have it here in the dashboard. I would say we treat it as a protocol in the Jellyverse, but also it's kind of the special protocol in the Jellyverse because staking is not staking like it is on proof of stake blockchain. It's a different sort of thing. It works by users freezing their jelly, and by freezing their jelly, they get a certain power. That power determines their voting power. So how much votes they can cast in any sort of decision making, and how much revenue they have from staking. Architecturally speaking, it's a separate part of the system, so it's kind of a separate protocol. We treat it as a separate protocol, and we want the users to see it as a separate protocol, but it's special in that way that the voting power that you get is determining the votes and therefore governance of the entire system, and the revenue that you get is revenue from the entire system, so from all the protocols generating real yield. So that's a really big plus. In practical terms, we have these chests here, which are kind of analogies of staking position. You can create a chest, which is, in technical terms, an NFT, which is non-tradable. So you can hold it, and you can add a certain amount of jelly to that NFT, and you can freeze it for a certain period of time. The more jelly you add, and the longer time period you freeze for, the more votes you get, the more APR you get, and the stronger your position is. An important feature of that is that it's not a fixed APR and fixed votes for the entirety of your freezing period. So as your freezing period goes on, and as you reach or get close to your unfreezing date, your voting power drops and your APR drops. So in that way, we are really rewarding people who are committed to the system for a longer time, and who are rewarding them with APR and giving them more votes, and therefore more control over the entire system, because that is something that we really want. We want people who are making the decisions to be the people who are invested and committed to the system for a longer period of time. And that's how everything kind of ties together. So yeah, it's again kind of a separate protocol from a people's perspective. They can create chests, they see their APRs and so on, but then that is usable in governance to get the rewards, to get to vote and to pass through proposals.
Absolutely. This is was a very good explanation. I'm just right now searching a graph here in the back, or I think the guys created this. It looks really cool, and I think this will maybe emphasize a bit more what you said. So we have on the left side all the protocols as we described, and then we have on the right side the core. And this is what you were discussing, or what we have been now explaining, right? The whole governance system, staking system, the whole distribution, so on and so on. And on the right side, we have then the staking isolated. So we will have a shift from the inflation or the rewards, which go to JUSD, JellySwap, and JellySwap is actually twice here. So maybe this is still outdated. This will be Jelly Bond here. So we have the protocols on the left side, which get the rewards, and all the fees collected from all those protocols will go back to the stakers. So there's like a clear flow of incentives and a clear benefit for people to actually hold Jelly in the long term, right? And the core is
So yes and no. So not all of the fees will go to the jelly stakers. But yes, you're correct. The right proportion we will still determine, and that is another configurable parameter, right? How much of the
right.
fees are actually going to staking and how much are going to the protocol users themselves, because we do want to incentivize that as well.
Correct. And yeah, in the middle here, as we now explained, are the contracts which make this possible, right? Which gives us this flexibility to onboard new projects, to make this redistribution, to keep those parameters flexible, to manage them. And as you said, also to give the jelly stakers in future the opportunity to see, okay, what makes sense, economically speaking? Like how many fees can we actually take from all protocols to still keep the protocols itself economically yeah, sustainable, but also get the maximum out of this, right? So this will be very interesting to see how this plays out over time.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing important to mention also, ideally, how we see it is, uh, yeah, most of the fees go to the stakeholders, with a smaller amount going to the protocol users, at least in the long term. But then the protocol users get a higher percentage of the inflation rewards. So they basically get jelly, which they can sell off if they don't want to be involved in the system. But it also kind of incentivizes them to get into staking, and staking actually makes them an active participant in the system, not just providing liquidity, for example, which is relatively passive, but also being invested in the system a bit longer, so making decisions about it and so on, and earning all of those fees and all of those rewards as well. So we do want to have that kind of circular cash flow.
Okay, I think this was a nice overview. I think we went really into details here. We could talk about reward distribution next. And then I think when we have the reward distribution clear, it's also pretty easy to understand why it's actually possible for other people to jump on that and get involved and build their project on top of Jellyverse. So yeah, I think this is a this is a more complicated topic. So maybe you want to start and give an overview. I would just leave this graphic maybe here. I think this explains it the best, and we just try to go along that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even go into those details too much. I will try to explain it in more layman's terms and just for everybody to understand. So the main challenge with reward distribution is that we have this rather complicated way of calculating rewards, and with that way it's very difficult and expensive to calculate the votes and rewards on chain. Yeah, we have a state of LP tokens and of votes that are constantly changing, um, and for that reason, it's very hard to do it on chain. So we made a decision to do those calculations off chain. First of all, to minimize the risk in any error in those calculations, because any error can then be very easily amended by changing the way we calculate it off chain. Whereas if we had that immutable on chain, we couldn't do that. And secondly, to make it more usable and cheaper for calculations. So how it works in essence is we have a script that periodically will kind of snapshot the state of the system to take a state, meaning for liquidity mining, the amount of LP tokens that are held by each address, for staking, the amount of votes that are held by each address or voting power, and based on that, calculate the distribution of rewards. That period is yet to be decided, and that is not something that will be fixed or any way kind of enforced by the blockchain itself, because it's off chain. But currently we are probably thinking about 1 day. So each day we take a snapshot, we calculate the amount of rewards that each address is supposed to get, and then probably weekly we aggregate those rewards. We add them to we form a Merkle tree from that. So a Merkle tree is a type of tree. We don't have to get into the details, but the gist of it is that you can have a root of the tree, so not holding a huge amount of data, but just one piece of data. And with that root, you can easily prove that you are a part of that tree, that your address is a part of that tree. In practical terms, that means that from the root, you can prove that your address has earned some rewards, and you get those rewards. So in short, we calculate percentages and the state of the chain off chain periodically. Then we aggregate that again periodically. So let's say we take a snapshot daily, and then we aggregate that once per week, and we run we create the Merkle tree based on the rewards accrued by every address, and then we publish that Merkle tree. That Merkle tree and the reward distribution will be published through governance. So anybody can run those calculations, anybody can run the script to calculate it, anybody can run any sort of proposal, and publish the Merkle tree that they got based on those calculations. If that Merkle tree is good, if the calculation is good, presumably all the people who are governing the system will vote for that proposal, and the reward distribution will pass. If that doesn't happen, if somebody tries to abuse the system and give himself a bunch of rewards that he didn't earn, then everybody can check, see that it doesn't fit with their calculations, and vote against that proposal. So that's kind of in short how it works.
Okay, summarizing from my words, we take basically the snapshot. Maybe you can imagine like a photo, like you take a picture from the state, like you picture the blockchain, then you know everything. We use an off-chain calculation. You explained why we use that. I mean, it's due to efficiency, mostly because it's very costly to calculate all of this on the EVM chain. Imagine you have a lot of operations. Every operation on the EVM chain, like every multiplication, every addition, all of this costs gas fees. So we don't want to have those huge costs just by calculating the reward distribution. And then there's a bunch of steps to make sure that everything is legit. And then we can basically vote on that, and then we can distribute it. I think the challenges here for people to get used to it is the fact that we will distribute rewards on a weekly basis. So that's something people might not be used to, especially on DeFi chain, because you get your rewards every 30 seconds on your wallet automatically paid out. And I think this is something which is not possible due to the nature of the VM chain, right? And would be super problematic for Jellyverse to handle it that way. But I think
yeah. So on the native layer of DeFi chain, we have the native DEX and we have the singular DEX, right? On EVM, we could have 50 different DEXs, 50 different projects, and so on. And all of those calculations need to be done. So the main difference is that kind of all those mechanisms for reward distribution for everything are kind of built into the native layer itself. It's the code of the chain. It's not something that is like deployed on chain like it is on EVM. So actually the cost of those calculations is technically paid by the people who are staking on the native layer. but it's also limited because we only have one DEX with limited amount of pools and so on. Here we could have unlimited number of DEXs, and the costs kind of potentially skyrocket. Adding to that, we have a more complicated way of calculating the distributions, specifically for staking, because your stake and your voting power constantly changes. So that is additional complication as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think one of the points, maybe to emphasize this back again, is that everyone can run this calculation off chain. So it's a bit like everyone can just do that, can run the calculations, can compare it. I think probably in future someone will probably, hopefully from the community, come up with some cool tools to verify that very easily. To maybe just click a couple buttons and then you see, okay, that's the right calculation. The snapshot matches, the results matches. It's the same hash that comes out. And it's going to be way more easily later on, and all of that is more like under the hood. But I think it's still very valuable to explain all of this, because we also have a lot of technical users available who maybe are interested in how that works specifically compared to the native layer. So
also, one more thing. So technically speaking, anybody can come up and create another off-chain script that has some sort of like better optimized calculation or more precise calculation of reward distribution or anything like that. Say on Reddit or on Telegram or wherever, hey guys, I created this. It's really cool. It's better than the existing script. We all agree that we use the new script, and from that point on, we just off-chain calculate with that new script, create new results, numerical trees, and everybody can then confirm it. So it's kind of any change, whether to the calculation or to the parameters in the calculation itself, can be changed off-chain, and then through voting confirm that change is good.
correct. So knowing now all of this, how could some other project, let's say, right, we're a bit down the road, everything is live, and people pick up Jellyverse, people are excited about it, and we have the first protocol live, which is the DEX. We're going to have staking, right? And maybe in future, we're going to have, hopefully sooner than later, the JAsset system, which has been announced that the Black Swan team is building on Jellyverse. And then maybe, let's say someone else comes around the corner and says, I really, really like this. I want to adapt my project to the Jellyverse economy instead of launching my own token, which has a lot of challenges itself, right? How would that look like?
So it would be fairly easy. The main thing would be to connect the fees, so that a part of the fees from that protocol go to the fee collector for the entire Jellyverse. Any parameters that needs to be changed, including those fees, you would have to give the permission to the governance smart contract to change those parameters, and then you would have to communicate to all the people that you want to integrate this into the Jellyverse. As far as the incentives go, the change would just be to change the way that we calculate the reward distribution. So changing the percentages that go to that protocol, and reducing the percentages that go to all the other protocols. So changing the script that actually calculates the reward distribution between different protocols to include that protocol as well. Another interesting example would be if we want to have an additional pool that we want to incentivize, which is done similarly. So we just change some parameters, although those parameters will probably be on chain. So how we distribute rewards between different pools, and what basically, so if 10% of rewards go to this pool and 15% go to this pool, that can also easily be changed through governance, and then reward distribution is just executing those changes.
Jovan, I think we have a great overview here. What do you think? Anything else that we missed?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's I think it's good enough for most of the people. It's probably not techy enough for some people who want to dive more deeply into it. But yeah, I mean, we also probably don't want to reveal too much yeah, of some things. But yeah,
Yeah, we have to keep some surprises up for sure.
yeah,
Um, maybe before we close the video, we are now roughly 40 minutes in. We could give a short overview of where we stand right now. I think this is something most people are really, really interested about. We have been delayed, of course, from our initial course. So we always said on the landing page that we wanted to release end of 2023. And I think this is something which sadly we have to move down a bit further road. So maybe we can give an update here. Maybe you can explain a bit the recent issue of the JollySwap deployment on the testnet side. And then we can give a short overview which protocols are we currently working on, which are already done, what are the next steps, and so on and so on.
yeah, sure. So yeah, without giving any promises, yeah, we hope to be releasing everything in Q1 of next year. There have been delays, some of it caused by some internal issues, some by external issues. Um, but yeah, we are now at the point where I think we have everything nailed down, including architecture, the scope of work, and everything that actually needs to be done, because that was always kind of a work in progress. We were developing this governance architecture and reward distribution, and that's all of those things that kind of changed along the way. But now I think we have it nailed down sufficiently to say that the scope of work is there, and we know what needs to be done. We just need to do it. Of course, auditing is something that is always kind of and uncertain in a sense of how long it's going to take, and whether it's going to cause additional delays. But yeah, if no additional delays, if all goes to plan, I think Q1 of next year is very, very realistic. Yeah, some of the issues that we faced were caused by some of the instabilities that we had on DMC. Some of those issues are still there. So currently we are unable to deploy one of our contracts because of the transaction limits, which were reduced, so which were changed. So reduced from some number to some other number. It doesn't really matter. That change, I think, happened when we ran into another problem that we highlighted to the core team. But yeah, hopefully we will have a new version. Yeah, those are all issues on testnet. So hopefully we will soon have a new version of new fork of testnet, which will be functioning, and which on which we will be able to deploy those contracts and continue on with testing. That being said, the DEX itself, so JellySwap, is more or less done. I think we have all the contracts there. The staking is something that we are currently developing, and I think we are very close to finishing. So the protocol itself, the UI is pretty much there. The protocol itself is also being developed, but the protocol itself is relatively simple. So we hopefully will have it soon. And of course, then the biggest kind of from a complexity point of view, chunks of development are governance and reward distribution, which we are currently working on. So yeah, of course, when everything is done, again, testing, integration, audits, so on and so on. But yeah, we are kind of on a good track to have everything done in Q1.
I think one of the interesting facts, maybe one addition first. So the burn event is something we're also working on. I mean, most of you know that we will have a burn event where people can burn DFI and DUSD to set up some initial liquidity on JellySwap and then get everything rolling. Those burn events are not going to. It's supposed to distribute Jelly in the beginning, but we're not gonna enrich ourselves with this. This is just purely protocol and liquidity, and yeah. So that maybe just a one addition. And this contract has been done already, but there's some modifications needed. So we also added some modifications there. And interestingly, what I also learned now in all of this venture is that smart contract development is really a lot of work in testing more than in writing. So we can expect to have the contracts ready soon, but to spend a lot of time in running extensive tests for all of this. So yeah, I find this is a very interesting fact. And lastly, the DEX, as you said, is already done. Yeah, I think most of the things are working, providing liquidity, swapping, so on and so on, and all of that has been deployed on Sepolia for quite a while. Some of the contracts has been also deployed to DMC, and yeah, but without UI first, and then now in our recent attempt to really deliver everything to DMC testnet as a complete package that people can also start testing and we can do our open beta. That was the one where we discovered the transaction limit issue. So
Yeah, we made that decision to kind of deploy and test on Sepolia as well, just to then compare the issues that we find. If we find any issues on Sepolia, we know that they are due to our product, and if we find any issues that are present on Sepolia, but not present on Sepolia but present on DMC, we know that maybe it's something to do with DMC. So that's how we found the issue with the transaction limits. And some other issues with DMC. But yeah, that's kind of the approach that we decided on going. As DMC becomes more stable and usable, we will for sure move more towards DMC. But we are still currently on both fronts, which we think is smart for now.
And one thing I would like to add here as well. So we thought about splitting our timeline. I mean, from a business perspective, especially, or from also more user-friendly perspective, it would be cool to deliver the things in stages, right? So it would be, why not putting first the DEX, then staking, then governance, so on and so on. But with the architecture of Jellyverse, this becomes a bit tricky. And it comes especially a bit tricky when we talk about decentralization. So assuming that we would like to roll out things in stages, we would be forced to centralize some aspects, right? To make the changes later on, to connect the system later on to the governance system. And yeah, that would be, I think this would be not the right start for Jellyverse. This would definitely be a way too big trade-off to be made. If we really want to have a decentralized system, then we have to bring this all together so that it really makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think we had always try to kind of control those two parts of us. One that wants to actually have everything as soon as possible and kind of satisfy all the people in the community who are waiting for Jellyverse and kind of justify all that hype and so on. But the other part, which is uh, winning for now, and that's a good thing, is saying, okay, there's no rush. It's the most important thing is to deliver a good, stable and quality product and not just publish anything. And then everything else will come.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can wait a couple more weeks and that will be fine. Jovan, thank you very much for your time. I think this was a very nice overview here, a very nice deep dive. Not an overview, it was a deep dive. We are 50 minutes in. I think that's enough for now. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to post it down in the comments and we will pick it up in the next Tech Talk. So we will definitely do this on regular basis whenever we have something interesting to talk about. And maybe we will, in the next episodes, dive deeper into the specific protocol. So really, like, how does JellySwap work? How does JellyStake work? Or maybe JUSD, how are all those mechanisms working? So on and so on. And maybe also we can at some point invite maybe, I don't know, maybe the guys from Dex One, maybe they want to share more details of the J asset system. I don't know. Let's see. But if you guys have any ideas, if you want to see something specific, if you have questions, then leave it down in the comments. And of course, if you want to support us, then also leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Thanks, Jovan, for the explanation. With that being said, see you guys.
Bye.